We have the IT Minister of Tamil Nadu, Mr. Palnivel Tyagarajan, with us. Sir, you would have come across news about electoral bonds like in the last 1 week, very frequently. So I would like to ask you, what is your first reaction to the electoral bond scheme that the SC calling it unconstitutional, and the Supreme Court making the Election Commission of India publish the data in their domain as to who bought how many electoral bonds, and what were the encashments made by political parties?
Look, I think there's some really profound issues here, right? I mean, I haven't done the analysis myself, but I've been following it online. And I think you have to start from the very basics. The notion of a democracy, of the model of governance that is a democracy, is intricately tied to the notion of having some kind of free market capitalism. Because from the days of Karl Marx, including the current kind of analysis from economists like Thomas Piketty, it's very clear that the natural tendency of free markets and capitalism is to provide very big winners who get so rich that they can become so powerful with their money that they can subvert the governance to their benefits. So at the core of democracy is to have a level playing field, is to have accountability, is to have transparency, is to have strong institutions that prevent economic winners or business winners from effectively taking control of the governance, right? And many people have written about this. Long ago, Professor Raghuram Rajan and his colleague at the University of Chicago wrote a book called Saving Capitalism from the Capitalists, where they talk about those who become so successful through lobbying, through donations, can subvert the democratic system. So in that sense, if you start from the basics that democracy is vital for having free market capitalism be successful and achieve growth and improve people's lives, as opposed to communism or dictatorship, then transparency and level playing fields are vital to a democracy. In my mind, this electoral bond scheme was completely the antithesis of transparency and level playing field, right? It was atrociously bad, one-sided. Why? It's more than the fact that the funding is opaque. Because there's no way you can run a system that is opaque to everybody, including the government. So what this system did, it built a platform where the government knew not only who was donating to it, but also who was donating to its opponents, whereas the opponents knew nothing. The public knew nothing. So this was actually an atrociously bad design, where it gave one-sided information to the ruling party, who could get all details about everybody, and the rest of the state, the country, the people were left in the dark. So, though it came very late, in my opinion, this should have been struck down as anti-constitutional or unconstitutional on the day it was announced or shortly thereafter. Though it is 6 years late, I welcome this judgment, because it is, as the data now shows, it has saved the last vestiges of democracy. Because whatever I said hypothetically would be a problem in an opaque system where only the government got the information, preliminary analysis of the data shows it is that and worse. We have seen so many cases of quid pro quo, positive and negative. That is to say, people who are under investigation, people who have already been raided, targeted, end up paying money and getting the investigation quashed. People who are about to get contracts pay money and get contracts. People who have got contracts then go and pay money. So this quid pro quo, which is against the very fabric of democracy, has been institutionalized through this kind of atrociously bad scheme. And it is appalling to me. Like, the thing that really worries me, see, you want robust independent institutions. We want the Election Commission to be independent. We want the Income Tax Department to be independent. We want the CBI to be independent. All those have become effectively arms of the ruling party, BJP government. That itself is a big failure of democracy. Now we are seeing a bank. Now, a bank is a completely different institution because it's sitting on public deposits. Here you have the biggest bank in India, nationalized bank, that effectively seems to be functioning as a tool of the BJP government. First declining to give the data, citing all kinds of nonsense about how long it will take. Then publishing the data with big gaps. The 2,500 crores before 2019, which is the biggest chunk, of which 95% went to the BJP, that is not published. The data that is published doesn't have any serial numbers for cross-referencing. It is appalling to me because, to me, I'm still so aggravated. How can a bank, how can a nationalized bank file such a submission to the Supreme Court that says it cannot get done? like anybody who knows anything rudimentary about banking, right? Let's assume, I'm going to give you a hypothetical. Let's assume 100% of the documents came in paper. Let's assume that they were submitted at different branches. Let's assume that they were processed in different branches, etc. There is something called settling and clearing, meaning at some point the money has to actually move from account A to account B, or from cash to account A, or from account B to cash or something. Settling and clearing is 100% mandated and regulated by the RBI. So no matter how the document or the transaction came to you, when it finally finished its process, that the money had to go from A to U, from U to B, both those must have been electronically recorded somewhere. Otherwise, this banking system is failing. Otherwise, you have a parallel banking system where tens of thousands of crores can be processed without any electronic record. So if these transactions have to be recorded, otherwise you're not in compliance with basic banking. You're not fit to be a bank. That means you're running basically a black money scheme inside a bank. Therefore, if that cannot be true, all these must have had electronic records, at least post on the settlement of the transaction. For the bank to come and say that I cannot give you these records 3 months, 6 months, is beyond the pale to me. It is beyond the limits of professionalism or decency. If I had my kind of true, input into this, we should go to ask the court to hold SBI in contempt for filing a false document in the court, right? That's how bad a document that is. So, I still think there's more data to come. When it comes, I think you're still going to get more